Credit Care Network Limited Q4 and FY20 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on a touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. H.P. Singh, Chairman and Managing Director of Satin Creditcare Network Limited, for his opening remarks. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Singh.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking your time out and joining us today to discuss our Q4 and FY20 earnings performance. I hope everyone is keeping safe, and my prayers are to those who are fighting this out. These are challenging and uncertain times, and before we briefly discuss our quarterly and yearly performance, I would like to highlight the macro factors affecting the economy and how we see it panning out for the microfinance industry and Satin. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a pandemic on March 11, 2020, and the Government of India acted swiftly to implement the first phase of nationwide lockdown since March 25, 2020. This resulted in complete halt to the economic and financial activities, having significant impact on the incomes and livelihood of the people. Coming to the microfinance industry, the industry growth got impacted in the later half of March 2020 as lockdown resulted into complete halt on disbursements and collection activities. This was followed by Cyclone Amphan in the east, which disrupted the operations in the states of West Bengal and Odisha for a couple of days. However, we see a significant revival in the sector with lockdown restrictions easing out, as most of the borrowers are residing in the areas where there is no major impact of the pandemic. Also, majority of our borrowers are engaged in classified essential sectors of animal husbandry and agriculture allied activity, so there is no major impact on their income. Company has delivered a decent performance for the financial year 2020, even though the financial sector, particularly microfinance, has faced multiple challenges: liquidity crunch, heavy floods in some states, nationwide protests, Assam crisis, and now COVID-19. Your company has sailed through these difficult times and was able to grow its book by 15.6%. We have resumed our growth journey after completing the process re-engineering in Q4 FY20 only, and lockdown brought a short-term halt for us. But we at Satin believe that in these unprecedented situations, keeping our fundamentals and processes right and adopting the new normal work changes will help us to come out even stronger. Talking about technology, it has become a vital part for all businesses, and right now we are witnessing its need than ever before. I'm happy to share that we have undertaken several new initiatives to successfully aid our staff and borrowers. During the quarter when physical movement of our staff and borrowers were restricted, we have successfully launched a new customer service app to increase digital and financial awareness amongst customers and to help them connect with brand Satin. We strongly feel digitization is the future and have quickly launched the digital collections in the current lockdown conditions. Customers are encouraged to pay their installments through various digital apps like Google Pay, Phone Pay, and Paytm. Also, our staff is in touch with our borrowers, and we are also undertaking tele-collection activities by CSS in COVID-19 containment zones. In addition to this, we are also in the progress of adding Satin on Bharat Bill Payment System, which is a one-stop solution by NPCI for recurring payments, and also under process of taking customer activation for regular collections via NASH and eNASH through bank accounts. Overall, our digital and cashless collection is seeing a good traction, and approximately 37% of collection was done via cashless mode in March 20, which is up from 27% in December 19. At Satin, we have always adopted a holistic approach with our customers being at the epicenter, and to continue with this legacy, we have undertaken a couple of initiatives to support them in these tough times. During the quarter, we have launched a new product called Pragati Loan. The main purpose of this product is to rebuild borrowers' income generation activities impacted due to COVID-19 and Cyclone Amphan, and also help them reduce monthly cash outflow on their loans. Following these financial and social economic approaches for our customers as well as our employees have helped us achieve few major milestones. We've secured first place amongst all MFIs in the Customer Service Index evaluation conducted by MFIN for Fair Practices Code, Policies and Process, certified by Great Place to Work for building and sustaining high performance culture. We have been awarded a Certificate of Excellence in Clean Energy Finance for distributing 85,579 clean energy products impacting 4.11 lakh people's lives and becoming a part of UNFCCC Clean Development Program. We further endeavor to bridge the socio-economic well-being of the low-income households by financing them on a sustainable basis in order to improve their livelihood, establish identity and enhance self-esteem. Now allow me to share the financial and operational highlights of our company. Our AUM has seen a growth of 15.6%, which stands at 8,174 crore as compared to 7,068 crores a year ago. As of March 20, we have a customer base of 34.58 lakhs. Our disbursements stood at rupees 8,045 for FY20. Net interest income for FY20 stood at rupees 917 crore, registering a growth of 14%, while for Q4 FY20 it stood at rupees 271 crore. For FY20, our pre-provisioning operating profit registered a growth of 15.1%, which stood at rupees 434 crore as compared to rupees 374 crore in FY19. While PAT for FY20 stood at rupees 155 crores as compared to rupees 201 crore in FY19. For FY20, our standalone cost-to-income ratio stood at 49.9%. For FY20, our OPEX to GLP ratio stood at 6.1%, whereas for Q4 FY20 it stood at 6.4%. As of 31st March 2020, our consolidated ROA for FY20 stood at 2.2%, whereas ROE stood at 11.9%. Coupled with several challenging macro factors during the year, we also undertook investment in complete process reengineering and digitization, which increased our operating costs and thus impacted our return ratio. However, with right systems and processes in place, we believe that going ahead, operating leverage will play out, which will help us control our costs and improve profitability. Our collection efficiency for the year stood at 98.8% despite the challenging environment. 78% of our borrowings are engaged in essential services, thus recoveries for them are expected to be much faster. Our GNPA at an AUM level stood at 2.9% as on 31st March 2020, while we have made adequate provisioning of 2.3%, bringing our NNPA to 0.6%. Our NNPA has seen a reduction of 16 basis points on a year-to-year basis, while on a sequential basis it has come down by 30 basis points. Now an update on moratorium. With respect to borrowers, we have always been supportive to our borrowers and have offered a helping hand to sail through testing times. Borrowers who will avail moratorium will have to pay the incremental interest, and the increase in the loan tenure would be explained to the borrowers. As of 31st May 2020, 25 to 30% of our borrowers are expected to opt for moratorium. With respect to lenders, we've got a moratorium from 63% of our lenders on principal repayment, while companies will continue to service interest during moratorium to all the lenders. We also continue to work with our lenders to raise additional funds. The recent announcement by the RBI with respect to TLTRO with specific limits for the NBFC and NBFC MFI is a positive for the MFI industry. Also, the announcement of NABARD getting 25,000 crore and SIDBI getting 15,000 crore and NHB getting 10,000 crore is a boost for the sector. Satin and its subsidiaries have a strong existing relationship with these institutions. On geographic expansion, for the full year March 2020, we have added net 220 branches across regions, while Q4 FY20 we have added 29 new branches. As of 31st March 2020, our total branch network stood at about 1,383. Our strong branch network is spread across 397 districts. Our branch network addition grew approximately 19% on a year-on-year basis. We have a strong business and risk team in place which follows a very cautious approach in selecting new geographies and opening up branches. During the year, we have expanded our presence to Sikkim, which takes our total state and union territory count to 23 now. Our diversified presence across districts has also helped us mitigate portfolio risk to a large extent. During the year, we expanded operations to 38 more districts, bringing our district penetration to 397. As of 31st March 2020, 96.5% of our districts have less than 1% of portfolio exposure, which we aim to bring it down further in the coming times. Exposure to top 4 states, 58.2% in FY20 from 85.9% in FY16. BC arrangement with IndusInd Bank stands at rupees 543 crores as of 31st March 2020. During FY20, we have been able to disburse close to 1,70,000 loans under the product financing categories, which includes loans for bicycles, solar products, home appliances, consumer durables, and water and sanitation. On the portfolio quality, during the year, we have made an additional provision of 82.76 crore on account of COVID-19, followed by stringent lockdown and cyclone. Our CSS ensures uniform processes across branch and provide back-end support to credit appraisal, quality, and customer support, along with post-disbursement monitoring. Our cashless collection now stands at 37% after we were successful in implementing 100% cashless disbursement across all our branches. In continuation to this initiative, to further digitize, we will provide payment gateway facility on Saturn's website also. We believe all these initiatives are on the right track and will help us smoothen end-to-end transaction and driving system efficiency and reducing operating costs without hampering our portfolio quality. Our capital base has been strong with our CRR of 30.49% and well above the regulatory requirement. We have a healthy Tier 1 capital comprising of 22.10% of the total capital base. Long-term credit rating CARE A stable and ICRA A stable, short-term rating CARE A1 and ICRA A1 upgraded from ICRA A2+, and grading MFI 1 highest order. Liquidity has never been a barrier for us as a company, and we have access to a diversified lender base with 64 active lenders. We continue to maintain a healthy balance sheet liquidity worth rupees 1,600 crore of surplus funds as on 31st March 2020. In addition to the above liquidity, we have undrawn factors of rupees 871 crore as on 31st March 2020. Our structurally positive ALM also adds to our advantage. An update on subsidiaries. All our subsidiaries have been making good progress. We infused 30 crore of capital in Satin Housing Finance Limited, which has now reached an AUM of 139 crores with nil delinquencies and having presence across 4 states. Satin Housing has a collection efficiency of more than 80% even during lockdown. Total capital of Satin Housing stands at rupees 80 crore with a capital ratio of 125.9% and standalone credit rating of CARE BBB stable. Satin Housing has a 100% retail book comprising of 87% affordable housing loans and 13% of LAP. Satin Finserv, our MSME arm, is also taking good shape post commencing operations, having AUM of 111 crores. During the year, there was an equity infusion of rupees 80 crores. SFL's business aim to focus on secured retail MSME lending, wholesale lending to small NBFC, MFI and others. Total capital of SFL stands at 102.5 crores with capital ratio of 92.1% and standalone credit rating of CARE BBB-. Our business correspondent services under Taraashna Financial Services has reached an AUM of 704 crores. As of 31st March 2020, the company operates with 213 branches and more than 3.7 lakh active loan clients. With this, I would like to open the floor for questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, you may press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, you may press star and 1. First question is from the line of Surir Beda from Right Fund Consultancy. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, sir, and congratulations on a good set of numbers in unprecedented situation, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, couple of questions and one observation. The question is, as I was listening to your TV interview and you were telling that your collection 25 to 30% borrower have opted for moratorium. So, what is the collection efficiency in May and June so far? That is the first question. Second would be, you have done some 82 crore something provision for COVID. So will this provision be sufficient considering your gut feeling? Actually, how situation will pan out, nobody knows. But what's your situation or what's your gut feeling about this provision? Whether we will need extra provision or this will be the sufficient provision going forward? And third observation is there is a reverse migration happening. So will that be benefit our microfinance industry as a whole? Because a lot of people are migrating to rural, and rural income is expected to go up because of good agriculture and good monsoon. So your comment on that. Thank you, sir.
So let me answer you the third question first, basically. So you are absolutely right, because of the migration now happening to states like Bihar and UP. The avenue for increasing rural incomes will definitely increase. And we are seeing a good traction in our portfolio of collections. When I revert back to your first question also, if I look at our collection efficiency, which primarily, if we look at it, opened up from technically 1st June onwards, when our branches which were even in the red zone and everything started opening up, our collection efficiency on a day-to-day basis is now touching close to about 60% or so, which bodes very well in collections will pan out during this crisis also. And coming back to your this thing, the demand will be very, very huge. Looking at the avenues for increasing the rural penetration and income generating activities. So we feel that the demand has a lot of huge potential. In terms of opting of moratorium, this is where a connect has been made with our customers when we are looking for collection. Now, if you are saying that we're technically able to connect and have a 60% collection efficiency, means that what we feel close to about 35 to 40%, right now, this I'm talking of June middle, will be opting for a moratorium as per our initial listing. But since the moratorium is there till August end, I think the figures will try and oscillate. But the indications right now are very, very positive when we say that, we are touching a collection efficiency of 60% on a day-to-day basis. In total, if I give you a figure, we've been able to collect close to about 228 crores? 228 crores in terms of our collection. In April was absolutely negligible because of lockdown. May was again about 95 crores because of the late end of opening up of branches and the boys reaching this thing. But we've been able to collect close to 228 crores up till now, and June signifies a much better traction in terms of collections.
That's great thing, sir. And so provision, so would it be sufficient? Because the market is pricing our share at just 32% of our book. So it's a pricing near wiped out net worth kind of scenario. So will there be it will be necessary to provide more going forward apart from this 82 crore?
See, on what the market terms as prices is something which I would not like to comment on, because it, whatever factors are there, and I would not like to.
That is just this observation.
So what I can probably say is that in terms of provisioning, I think we've been able to clean up our balance sheet to a very large extent by providing a provision. You are right, absolutely. The times are very uncertain, but we feel the way we are reaching a traction, I think the credit costs will probably be will not be that much as what we provided in FY20. That's what our take is.
Thank you. So these are sorry to interrupt you. I'll request you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. A request to all the participants, please restrict to 2 questions per participant. If time permit, please come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. Thank you. Next question is from the line of Puneet Rai from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. Thank you for the opening remarks. Just a couple of questions. One, a slightly macro question, since you've been in this business for so long and you've seen, plenty of crisis in India. How do you think is this different, like if you compare it with demonetization, etc., you've been through it and you came out of it. So one question is just some macro general thoughts on whether it is, as bad as demonetization was than demonetization, any comparison. And second specific question was, in this period, April, May, June, are you also disbursing money as interim loans, etc., or focus is only on collection?
So thank you. What we are looking at on the macro level, if I can probably give an answer to that, I feel that this is probably not going to be as as difficult as what demonetization was. And I know probably I think a lot of people will not be able to really digest this at this moment, but very frankly, we are seeing that the income levels as well as the infection levels in the rural space is lesser than what we have in major metros like Delhi and Mumbai. That gives us a very positive response. So having looked at it very closely in the last 3 months, we feel that I think the bounce back will be far more better, wherein it was not that great during demon. And the other factor which is probably added on is demon was probably more of when people used to talk about loan waivers and loan maafis. This time, thankfully, it is only a moratorium. It's a deferment, and people do not talk about loan waivers. So that's a very positive sign if you really look at in terms of how the macro factors will probably pan out.
Right.
And the other factor which probably is also very interesting is that our major portfolio is related to agri and agri holdings. There has been a very good harvest time this year.
Correct.
So that will also have a very positive play in terms of how our repayments pan out. So that is also one of the positive signals which we are looking at during these times. In terms of our disbursements, we started our disbursements in June. We are making, which I talked about, the Pragati loan. This is technically to enhance livelihoods for people who might have impact on their livelihoods and their income levels. These disbursements have been started now. We didn't disburse anything in April, May because it was not possible to do it. But yes, disbursement has started, and we hope to pick on this, moving forward. So these are both the positive signs which we are trying to, look at significantly.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Harsha from Dimensional. Please go ahead. Harsha, may I request you to unmute your line from your side and go ahead with your question?
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So I wanted to understand, wanted to ask a question on your moratorium. So the industry moratorium has been in the northwards of 70-75%, whereas you have kept it at around 30%, which is quite commendable. So can you just explain what are you doing right that your moratorium is way below the industry level?
See, I don't know about the industry level of the normal NBFCs and the normal NBFC MFI. There could probably be a difference, But what we can say is, when I give you a figure of collection efficiency of technically 60% happening in June, gives us that, if you look at people who have not been able to pay in the first 15 days, technically is close to about 40%, which gives us an indication that, that plus minus 5-7% is where I think people will not avail the moratorium. Moratorium is still till August, So what indications which we are getting, and when we are talking to them, if they are making an installment, that means that they do not want to avail the moratorium, and that is where the percentage figures has probably come in,
Okay. And could you also give us the breakup of your provisions in terms of how much is towards FLDG, how much is write-off, and how much is provision which is taken to the balance sheet?
So I can ask Mr. Jugal Kataria to give you an answer on this question. So Jugal, can you?
Yeah. So on a portfolio level, our provisioning is about which includes the provisioning on PC as well as on the on-book portfolio. So the overall credit cost for this year is 3%, and our gross NPA is about 2.9% on a portfolio level, against which we have a provisioning of 2.3%, which includes both on-book and off-book, whatever is our FLDG cost and the credit cost.
Okay. And last, just a bookkeeping question. So your business income, I'm talking about the standalone numbers, the BC income, has increased from 25 crore to 62 crore YY. And annual, but your AUM, your standalone AUM under the BC income has reduced by 20%. So can you just reconcile these numbers?
The BC income started building up last year. So in the first 2 quarters, it was slow, and then it started building up, while in financial year 20, it was consistent throughout the year. So that is why the BC income is, in terms of absolute number, is more for this year.
Okay, sure. I get it. Thank you. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Andre Purushottam from Cogito Advisors. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. Congratulations for a decent set of numbers. I had two questions. One is related to cost to income. Now, you've made considerable progress in reducing the cost to income. I just wanted to understand if you could throw some color as to what are the specific steps that you've taken and what are the major costs of income or of costs that have reduced. And going forward, and how much scope do you see for further reducing cost to income? And where would the areas for reduction lie?
Thank you, Andre. Andre, we always have, tried to see that where does our cost to income will probably, go down in terms of our operational efficiencies. I think, what we've been able to really leverage on is the way we've been trying to increase our cashless collections to a large extent. We were doing process re-engineering, and I think, that probably, before the lockdown and, post the lockdown also, I think, we are looking at various measures of increasing our cashless collections. We are looking at various measures of actually rebooting and reconfirming our branch strategy and our regional office strategy in the larger context. I will probably not be able to share the intricate details as such, but we are really taking a very serious look at how do we are able to consolidate all these operations so that the cost to income ratio falls further. There is a large scope which we are trying to look at, and definitely yes, in terms of our operational efficiency, I can give it to you in writing that we'll probably be having far more efficiency building in even post the lockdown and the post COVID-19 era to look at how we are able to significantly reduce our operating expenses.
You're not able to be a little bit more specific on this, Mr. Singh?
And these are all work in processes, and I said, we are consolidating a lot of our regional offices and branch offices. So you can probably take a cue from there and cashless collection to a large extent. I think it was probably mentioned in my opening remarks, we have launched our customer service app. So technically what we are moving towards is that all our microfinance borrowers will have an app from where they can actually make a payment and do disbursements from there. So the whole process of moving ahead with manual intervention will take a backseat to a large extent. So these are few measures which I can probably give you in the outer context, but intricate details probably can be shared offline with you.
Okay. And my second question related to the moratorium and the NPAs, etc. The first clarification is that given that there's a moratorium till August, will we get to know about the incremental NPAs only by September end? Would that be right?
I think, that should probably be the right way, because right now the figures which we will quote, technically will not have much bearing, because the whole thing will pan out after August, But, looking at the initial response of collections, how it is coming, and we were also not very, very hopeful the way I think, the response has come in for us. I think we will have probably the same. And the economic activity has already started in the rural region, After the lockdown, the economic activity has picked on with the good harvest and everything which is there. So that bodes well for, how the NPAs will technically pan out in the later stage. But it's encouraging and it's positive.
And do we have a granular understanding of those who are not paying? What kind of people are these and what are the reasons for which they're not paying? Do we have an understanding of what's happening on the ground?
See, we have cuts and we do data analysis, and our teams are in touch with these institutions. A couple of places, definitely, yes, there would be small, interferences from the local leaders as such, where they will probably say, why don't you take a moratorium because it's been announced. But it's only a question how you make your connects. So I think we still have sufficient time for us till 31st August to make those connects and look at more positivity coming in even after this,
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Next question is from the line of Sundar Kumar Gupta, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Singh.
Fine.
I have two small questions. One is, how the shareholders are being rewarded? They are not being rewarded because their capital has risen to the extent of 80% during the last 6 months. Can the company not think of reducing its cost of borrowing by rewarding the shareholder by way of rights issue?
Sir, I cannot probably comment on this because these are questions which I probably will not be able to answer. I think, we've done every possible thing in terms of our operations of the company, and I think that is probably a ultimate reward which will, translate down to the shareholders. I think, I would probably be refrained in answering this question directly.
But cost of the borrowing can be reduced in that case.
Cost of borrowing, sir, just to give you an idea, cost of borrowing has no significance for us because we work under a margin cap. So, the RBI has specified a 10% margin cap for us. Even if the cost of funds go down, it will be passed on to the ultimate borrowers. So the margin will always remain the same. It's only the operating cost which can actually deliver us much better results if our operating cost goes down. The margin will always remain the same.
I understand, but shareholders are not getting rewarded in any way directly.
Sir, I've given my answer to it,
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, ma'am.
Hello? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Gautam from GCJ Financial. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Congratulations for good set of numbers. So my question regards to is what process you followed for moratorium offering to our clients?
So, right now it's a process of connect with our customers. So, we are technically connecting with all our customers. Customers who are willing to repay, we are taking installments. But customers who say that they are probably affected by the COVID-19 and they have probably taking more time to repay, we are giving them that time that they can think about it and they can take a moratorium if they wish to do so. So that connect is already on. The process of our boys meeting the customers, meeting the group leaders, having not exactly the center meeting because social distancing has to be kept. So they're meeting center leaders and they're meeting group leaders and getting a enhanced answer from them in terms of how the moratorium would really work on. And that is the reason why when we say that we've been able to get on a demand collection basis a collection efficiency of 60%, I think gives us probably an answer how it is to be done. This is all work in process again. I think till 31st August we will keep on continuing with that, keep on getting our collections whatever we can from our borrowers, and then we'll see how things thing. Along with that, I think we are doing all CSR activities by maintaining connect. So all CSR activities are happening. We are distributing masks, sanitizers, and all other stuff to maintain that connect, and also trying to see that we have set up a call center where the calling is going on with all the customers across. And in fact, we've been able to maintain a calling connect even of containment zones where our customers are to a tune of about 95 to 97%. That is how we are using this process.
How many of our clients we will able to connect? We could connect to them in terms of percentage.
Also about 95 to 97% we've been able to connect.
Okay, and why would not be able to connect to rest 3 to 5%?
Well, there are challenges of reaching out across there where the district administration is probably making it as a containment zone or something like that. So there is only a challenge because of logistic activities. There is no challenge because of any other things.
Okay, and as things stand today, as India is going for unlock in a big way, how do you see 2020 FY21 in terms of our credit cost and growth?
See, Credit cost, I've already given an answer earlier, but in terms of growth, I think, what we are looking at first half technically of this year, FY 21, is going to be a consolidation phase. The concentration is going to be on lesser disbursement, but more on collection. And the second half of FY 21 will probably be somewhere where we can look at enhanced disbursement and looking at probably the growth. So that is how this whole year is going to be panned out.
Okay. That's all from my end.
Yeah, thank you.
Next question is from the line of Rohit from Rare Enterprises. Please go ahead.
Yeah, congratulations on good set of results. I think all the questions have been answered. So if I have any, I'll come back in queue. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Vivek Ramakrishnan from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hey, sir. Given the fact that there are issues that come up in the microfinance sector in a very unrelated way once in a while, what would you say would be your capital policy, your capital, your leverage ratio, not capital adequacy ratio, as well as your liquidity policy going forward? That's the only question I have. Thank you.
So on liquidity, I think, we've probably always been very conservative. We've been maintaining liquidity worth close to about, in excess of 3 months of our disbursements. So, we've been conservative, and I think that will probably continue because that does constitute a negative carry on our balance sheet. But looking at it, I think during these times, we would still like to maintain that kind of a liquidity. So on liquidity, I think, that is what our scenario is. And sorry, the other question was?
On capital, sir. On your total leverage ratio, what would be are there any covenants saying your debt to equity cannot be more than a certain number? Or?
No, we don't have that. I think, well within that norm. I think our leverage ratio is close to about 3.7 or 3.7 or so. So we're very comfortable even on the leverage, ratios,
Okay, would you cap it at certain numbers? This 3.7 will be 4, 5,
See, there's still room to grow, and I think no lender technically has given us any kind of a covenant, on that. So we can probably, even if we are able to increase it, I think earlier used to be close to about 4.75. So even if you go down to 4.75, I think we probably will be good, because no lender has probably, flagged that issue or has come ever under any kind of a covenant, So we're happy with this.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot, sir. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Abhishek Murarka from India Infoline. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, so 3 questions actually. One, on disbursements, can you share some data on, the amount of disbursements you would have done in the first 15 days of June, just to sort of get an understanding of, the scale of the pickup. The second question is specific to Cyclone Amphan. If you can give some, ground level feedback and what is the current status of relief efforts and whether customers have started repaying or whether it's, just relief work is going on and the repayment will take some time to start. And the third question is on this Pragati loan. Can you give it specifics and under what circumstance are you disbursing? And also, how is it different from your existing loan products like Prarambh or Vriddhi?
So if I give you probably a ballpark figure of disbursements happening in June, I think, we've done right now close to about 5 crore worth of disbursements. So it's been less, but I think it has been significant looking at logistics issues and all that, But the product has been oiled in, and now I think, there'll be a pick on from now on.
Sure.
Looking at the cyclone, I think, Odisha didn't have a major impact of Cyclone Amphan. So over there, I think it was a disruption for a couple of days, and then I think, things are back to normal. So the leveler has been to us extent in West Bengal, and West Bengal also, it has just been in a couple of our branches where the impact has been deep. The disruption has been there for a week, I think in a couple of weeks. I think that's over now. So the relief work and the rebuilding exercise is going on. So I think that cyclone Amphan's whatever thing was there is now probably over. So I think now I think we're looking back at our collections coming back from there and starting our normal activities. That's there. For Pragati loan, I can only probably give you that this is a loan which is being given to for people who probably are not looking at moratorium to a certain extent, but who have been rebuilding and who really need it for their economic activities to be shored up. So it's a small kind of an emergency loan which we are giving it to customers who are not in par and who would require it for their rebuilding of income generating from this loan.
But so are you giving it only to existing customers or new customers, or also what is the ticket size and tenure and those details?
So it's only to the existing customers, and the tenure is for 2 years, and it's a 15,000 rupees loan, 15.
And does the customer have to sort of repay one EMI or two EMI to get this, or that's not necessary because it's for rebuilding and an emergency kind of loan?
So the clarity is that someone who needs it for his economic activities and who is not in par. That is what our basic fundamental on this loan is.
Not in par as of February 29th.
Exactly.
Okay. And just one more question. When you said, your collection efficiency, 228 crores is what you've collected so far. And May, I think you said 95 crores. So that leaves around 130 crores in the first 10 days of June. Is that correct?
Like when we gave the breakup, it was mentioned that the collection had started picking up in May only. So May it was 95 and in June, first 10 days it was around 98 crores. Rest was collected during March and April, the balance.
Got it. So if you've done roughly around 100 crores in June, and if I look at your ALM disclosure, it says that you would have collected by way of, loan and as in principal and interest around 140 crores in June. Where is the disconnect? Because ideally then your collection efficiency is very, very high.
So, there is this 228 crore numbers is on the AUM level, which includes on-book and off-book portfolio. While the static ALM that we have given, which is slightly behavioral and only for the on-book, because for the off-book portfolio, BC and direct assignment income, which is direct assignment portfolio, which is close to about 36% or so, whatever we'll collect, we'll pass it on. So that number is neither there in the collection nor in disbursement in the static ALM. And when we are saying this 228 crore number is the gross number, including it.
Okay. So out of roughly 140 crore which you are scheduled to collect in June, how much would you have collected? So just your on-book amount?
Broadly it is 2/3 on-book portfolio. So slightly here, there, means we are focusing only on the entire portfolio. So we do not have any risk left out in the DA portfolio, but we make all the sincere effort to do the collection there as well. So broadly 2/3 on-book, 1/3 off-book.
Thank you. Mr. Murarka, sorry to interrupt you. I'll have to ask you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. Next question is from the line of Rohan from Multi-Act. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, sir, and thanks for the opportunity. So, two questions. Firstly, we've said that we are doing limited format group meetings. So if you could elaborate on, what that means. Do we meet only the group leader and the group leader collects on behalf of the borrowers? How's this format changed versus the pre-COVID, meetings that we used to have? And secondly, again, following up on the previous participant, the 60% collection efficiency that we are talking about in June. So could that be higher on account of a few borrowers paying for April and May EMIs also now in June? Of the 60% in June is June daily collection against June daily dues only that we are talking about, to just understand the qualitative color of the sentiment about repayment. Thank you, sir.
So the second answer to your second question is that this is June payments. So June demand as compared to the June collection, so we are talking about that. So when we talk about 95 crores of May, it is against the May demand and May this thing, So June is what we're talking about. The June demand and June collection, is what we're talking about. On terms of the center meeting pre-COVID, it used to be the normal center meeting where all the members used to be present. But since now we have to maintain all this, it is now a connect with the group leaders and the center leaders. So the connection is happening where these center leaders and group leaders connected from the other members of the group or the center, and then they pass it on to this thing, But cashless is also one of the modes which is being, looked at it very firmly, So both these modes are going on.
Okay. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Kisle Upadhyay from Bacchus. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Could you share your strategy on disbursal going ahead? You mentioned certain aspects about product loans. Overall, what will be your expectation of disbursal number? And would it be to existing customers or to new ones? And if to existing, who among the existing would be eligible for this?
So we are looking at only at disbursing to our existing customers, because I think it's not the right time for us to look at new customers or new geographies or new areas. So that is for sure. The extent to where we are looking at disbursement is basically again what I had referred earlier is if somebody needs for their business to revive up their economic activity, that's one, and technically to non-par customers. So it is going to be for them. But as I said, first half is definitely more towards consolidation. But we are looking at how we are able to really look at, probably making best use of the existing customer base of ours, so that the connect remains and we are able to follow up probably dutifully by looking at disbursing to these clients.
And your expectation on numbers for the year?
I can't validate probably a number, because I think it'll be, won't be right, for me to give it that. But definitely once this settles down till September, this is what we feel. Once the moratorium gets over, I think then we can probably look at growth within these geographies only, basically. But the second half is going to be probably where disbursement will take probably a major field.
Okay. And then finally, could you give some estimate of expectation of OPEX in this year, FY21?
It'll be downward from what we have shown as ending on the FY20. That is for sure. There'll be a downward trend of what we shown. I think yeah.
So absolute number will decline by the way.
Yeah, I can't give you an absolute number, but yes, it'll be a declining trend. That's for sure.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Ritesh Gandhi from Discovery Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Singh, and congratulations on your recovering collection efficiencies. Just had a few questions in terms of your effectively provisions. How much of it is in lieu to Assam as opposed to ex-Assam and actually kind of COVID linked?
Jugal, can you answer the...
Sorry, I missed the voice in between. Is it how much is because of COVID?
Yeah, how much because of Assam and how much is ex-Assam, which I'm assuming is because of COVID?
So, as we explained in the previous calls, our Assam portfolio is coming down. So we now have close to about 4.7% of our book in Assam, which is 381 crore. Out of that, roughly 238 crore is on-book, balance is off-book, where we do not have any risk left out. So we are making all the sincere efforts and equal effort to collect that. So our gross NPA number on the own book is about 52 crore, and almost 90% of that is already provided for.
Got it. So of the provisions which we've done in Q4, how much is provided for, which is linked to Assam? How much is the Assam provisioning in Q4?
Actually, the provision that we have made for COVID, even, that is created on the Assam portfolio also. So I think it is, to break that state-wise, et cetera, we can discuss that offline and
Got it. Understood. And the other question is with regards to the BC relationships. Are they continuing to be open to disbursing loans? Or have they slowed down right now as everybody else? So, I mean, how should we be thinking about the AUM growth in the BC as things are normalized? I'm not talking about it right now.
So, the Pragati loan, the way we are doing it for our clients, it's probably the same thing which we are doing with our BC partners also. So, there's not been any kind of dilution in terms of, disbursement being made. So it is there continuing with even our BC partners.
Got it. Understood. Thanks a lot and all the best.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Nidesh from Investec Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello.
The participant has placed the call on hold. We want the next participant.
Sure.
Next question is from the line of Partha Agarwal. Please go ahead.
Hi. So my question was, have you seen any political interferences in terms of recovery in any particular geography?
There have been very small instances in Punjab and Odisha, two places, but it's been limited to a very few districts over there. It's not an interference, it's where when we do this customer connect with this thing, I think there's been this thing that, please opt for moratorium since, it's there and they don't want us to even connect with the customers, But that's a thing which has probably been taken in our stride. But there's not been the way interferences used to happen during the demon time, I think, it's just probably not there at all, So just a couple of districts where I think, there has been a local administration or a local local leader which has probably been there, but nothing of significance.
Okay. And second question was, you have mentioned in your presentation that you have collected 228.5 crores from lockdown till 10th June. So my question was, how much was actually due which should have been collected had there not been any lockdown?
On an average, if you look at it, I think monthly we should probably, get about 570 crores odd. If that's what my number is, principal and interest both put together. So you can extrapolate for 3 months basically, and that is what we've collected.
Okay. And till 15th June, you have collected 428 crores, if I'm not wrong, right?
Sorry, till 15th?
You mentioned in the compound site.
No, we've disbursed close to about 5 crores.
Till 10th June, we collected 98 crores.
Okay.
That's
all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Manish Oswal from Nirmal Equities. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. My question on your comment about this crisis much lower than the demon. So, first, in terms of ultimate credit cost in this cycle compared to because last time what we have seen that one of the leading microfinance player reported much lower credit cost compared to us. So when you say our collection efficiency are much better than those players, so what is our assessment on the ultimate credit cost in this down cycle?
No, you want to compare demonetization with this time, or you want to compare to both the companies?
So I am referring, sir, your comment about this crisis is much lower than the demon. That is one, and secondly, our collection efficiency versus the largest player in the sector.
So, I will not compare with anyone else, but I can only give you about what we do. So, demonetization, technically, if you look at it, we were the major ones which were impacted by demonetization. So, I think, the comparison probably holds not good in terms of what we do it with someone else, and I'll be very clear on that. What I was trying to say and what I think probably is the answer is, the way the credit cost probably moved out in demonetization because of political interferences, elections, raw material of new notes not being there, as well as loan waivers and etc., were probably far more in this thing as what is compared to this crisis. This crisis has an impact of economic activity, but not to a very large extent in the rural space. And that is where the difference between demonetization and this crisis probably in terms of what will happen in terms of credit cost is probably the answer which I was trying to enumerate during my opening remarks, during my question and answers.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Sarvesh Gupta from Maximal Capital. Please go ahead.
Sir, the first question is, you mentioned that around 75% of the borrowers are in rural activities. So could you give us some color on the remaining 1/4 of the borrowers, what kind of activities they are engaged in, and what has been the impact on their income levels as you see it?
So when I say 75% is in rural, means they are pure rural. Now, which does not mean that 25% are not. They are peripheries of rural and semi-urban, towns and this thing. Which, if you really look at it, also probably, I won't say it because if you go by the technical terminology and this thing, it probably will not be called rural, but the extensions are probably more rural as compared to more urban, even the balance 25% which we are talking about. So over there, the activities will not be pure agri or agri related. It could be essential services things, like maybe a Kiryana shop or maybe something like that. But it's all technically which is has an extension towards the rural space. That is what microfinance, and that is what typically we follow.
Understood. And since you mentioned around 60% collection efficiency, so I think what you are doing is you are multiplying 98 by 3 and making it 300, and you are taking the denominator as around 500 odd crore, which you are supposed to collect every month, including principal and interest. So that's how you are calculating that you have reached around 60% collection efficiency currently. However,
So let me conclude on give you on this. It works both the same ways. So if my total demand for the day is, let's say, 25 crores, if I'm able to collect 60% of that, and if you multiply it by the same, you'll have the same answer.
So understood. So you have reached that, and that is very well. But the missing payments that we had in April and May, plus 10 days of lockdown in March, would also amount to almost 1,150 odd crores. So what is the outlook, and what is your thinking of that major chunk of 1,150 crores? What can be done about it, and what do you expect in terms of your collection going forward?
See, please don't forget the baseline. It is an EMI business. So the EMI will technically come in the EMI form only. So when somebody is making a payment, he will not make bulk of payments of, if he's missed 4 or 5 installments, he will not make 4 or 5 installments. So there will always be a lag. The point which we are trying to probably tell you is that 60% of our people, of our borrowers, have come back into the fold even by making a single installment. That lag will always remain because you can't make 5 payments in a row. But they have been activated, and the best part is that 60% of our borrowers have been activated, and that's how the collections are panning out.
What will be your average tenure of loans, sir? And so this will basically be added to the tenure of loans, right?
15 to 18 months is the average loan tenure.
Understood. Okay, sir. Thanks a lot, and all the best for the coming quarters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Rajiv Mehta from Yes Securities Limited. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, sir. Most of my questions have been answered, but I've got remaining few. So one is with regards to the customer base in microfinance. So I see a persistent reduction in customer base in the standalone MFI business. Whereas we've added about 170 odd branches in the last 12 months, but the customer base has declined by 2-3%. So just wanted to understand this.
Jugal, can you?
Our first, second, and customers are going down. We have been focusing, in the first half of the year, we were working on the process re-engineering, etc. And the moment that started stabilizing in some of the branches, we started focusing only on the repeat customer. So just to give you a number, in March 19, our first, second clients were 52%, which is down to 44% now, which means our repeat customers are increasing and we are focusing on our good clients and then trying to retain them, which has resulted into slightly higher average ticket size. But, we are dealing with the customers who have proven their repayment behavior and repayment history. So that helps us to have better quality portfolio, better collection efficiency. So that's the strategy of that answer.
And Rajiv, just to give you a last cue on that, so we were following a lot of psychometrics and this thing, so rejections were still very high, so that's the reason why the customer base is probably, has gone down a little bit.
Sir, I have a question also on the manpower because, since, we've been following our, various exercises that we've been doing in terms of cost rationalization, and also we implemented centralized shared services. We were expecting some rationalization in cost and even manpower, but which has not been coming through, because even if I look at the non-revenue generating staff, that number keeps on going up quarter on quarter. So which is ex-loan officer employee base. So when would we see, because we are also expecting that the OPEX will come down, as a percentage. So would this be a big source in terms of rationalizing this employee base, and then, could be a big contributor towards OPEX coming down?
See, Rajiv, I really don't have the exact numbers in terms of my non-revenue generating staff, but if we look at the mix, we've always had a mix of about 70-30 in terms of our revenue and non-revenue staff. That ratio probably has not changed anywhere, so I will not have probably maybe the right answer. This is the mix which we work upon. But having said that, when I made my remarks on that, our operating cost will go down, that definitely is the cue which we are working on by rationalizing, the complete staff levels, all across the geographies, So I think, we've done a slight reduction, but, because of whatever happened in the last month of FY20, I think, that probably will be there. And just to share your numbers, right now, I think, my HR guy, I can probably say is that we've had a reduction of close to about 1,000 people from our ranks. That probably is a step which we are taking in the direction to, have optimum utilization of our manpower resources, So you'll see drastically things coming down,
Sir, how do we see liquidity availability? Because now first question here is, what percentage of lenders are offering or could offer a moratorium in the second phase? I know first phase we had a good response, 60% plus lenders offered us. So that's the question, that in the second phase, how many would offer? And when I look at the mix of on-book and off-book in terms of AUM, so off-book has been constantly climbing. So now with demand for securitization or direct assignment not being there in the market, would that kind of curtail us to, grow our AUM base? Because see, frankly, the on-book growth has been, quite low for us, and securitization and direct assignment has been providing us liquidity. But in the current scenario or in the current context, do you think that with bank not too forthcoming with taking over portfolios, would that be a constriction on growth?
We have. Can I? We have raised about 1,468 crore in the month of March. Out of that, more than 400 crore was raised post-lockdown, which includes money coming in the form of direct assignment and term loan, money coming in from public sector bank and a foreign bank. We have further raised close to about 350 odd crore, out of which some 50% has already been disbursed, 50% in the final stage of disbursement. With all the push coming in from government in the form of TLTRO and partial guarantee scheme and so on and so forth, we have applied to lenders. And with the long relationship with 65 to 70 odd lenders that we have, so we are confident that whatever money is required, and we have closed the subject in the month of March towards the end of it, after all this was happening. So we are confident that we'll be able to raise the required funding. We have closed a couple of DA transactions post-lockdown. It will take some time. The bankers are also understanding, but I think they understand the challenge on the ground, and things will improve in coming quarters.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, that was the last question for today. I will now hand the conference over to Ms. Aditi Singh for closing comments.
Yeah, thank you everyone for taking time to come on the call. And I understand there were a few questions which were unanswered, so you can get in touch with me. My name is Aditi Singh. I look after the investor relations. You can also reach out to Strategic Growth Advisors, who are our investment relation advisors.